The 2017 Two Sessions meetings in Beijing, and US President Donald Trump dealing with yet another controversy. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. The first of two significant political meetings, what are called the Two Sessions meetings, got underway in Beijing on Friday. President Xi Jinping and China's top leadership were in attendance as the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference convened for its annual meeting. On Sunday, the National People's Congress also begins its annual assembly. The two meetings help set China's national agenda on major issues such as the economy. Later in the show, we will talk about the ongoing controversy over alleged Russian involvement in the US presidential election, but we begin with the Two Sessions. And joining me now from Beijing is Victor Gao. He is a Chinese international relations expert. And also joining us from Beijing is Xia Peng. He is the co-founder of Zhuomo Cultural Media Company. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Victor, let me start with you. How significant are the Two Sessions meetings this year, and what do you believe will be the main issues that will come up?
Well, the two sessions, that is the CPPCC session as well as the NPC session, are the most important political events in China on an annual basis. Mainly, the NPC, which is China's legislature, will need to convene to consider the report by the Chinese Prime Minister on the work of the government and a whole range of other reports, and eventually adopt these reports. Now, for the CPPCC, which is a top government advisory body, they need to bring along their proposals on the whole range of issues in China, and the issues they want to discuss and cover include all the major political issues, economic issues, environmental issues, employment issues, social stability, for example, as well as China's position in the world. I would say that the NPC and the CPPCC sessions will probably leave no major issues that China is faced with untouched. And eventually are talking about close to more than 2,000 NPC delegates and more than 2,000 CPPCC members gathered together to exchange views, to talk about politics. This is typical of China's consultative democracy, which sets China apart from almost all the other major countries in the world.
Okay, let's go to Xia Peng. Economic development, of course, will be on the agenda. What do you see as the key economic challenges facing China right now?
Thank you, Anand. I think the main issues and challenges will remain the same as the one of that last year. Basically, the economic structural reform. However, there are some new variations should be taken into consideration as well, namely the U.S. new elected President Donald Trump and his American protectionism. I myself am not very optimistic about the short-term Sino-American bilateral trade. Therefore, I think Chinese government will put more efforts to build more multilateral trade partnerships like the One Belt and One Road project. And besides of that, of course, more importantly, to address the challenge is to stimulate the consumption and the domestic investment. Yesterday, I browsed some reports and proposals handed by some political advisors. One thing related to boosting the domestic consumption and investment is the tax reform. Now the companies in China need to pay around 20% of their tax as 20% of their revenue as tax and fees, which I should say is a little bit high, especially for the companies like mine. So I think the government is the government has already realized that issue and is now improving, because in last year the vault reform was implemented, and I think it will deepen the reform this year. And by doing the tax reform, I think the government will guide the economic transformation from the labor-intensive and energy-intensive economy into technology, innovation, as well as the startups.
Okay, Victor, as Xia Peng points out, there is a high level of uncertainty over the new US President Donald Trump and issues like global trade and foreign policy. What can we expect from President Xi? How is he going to articulate China's foreign policy as well as future trade issues?
I think President Xi Jinping has emerged as the most important champion of free trade and globalization. He delivered major speeches not only at the APEC meeting, as well as the Davos meeting earlier this year. And I think this is in sharp contrast with some of the positions taken by the new US President, President Donald Trump. And while the United States under President Trump seems to want to withdraw back behind closed doors and erected walls and practice American first, China is very much pushing for a win-win situation for the shared common destiny of mankind. And the One Belt, One Road initiative, which is spreading, and in May this year there will be a One Belt, One Road summit gathering most of the heads of state and heads of government of all the more than 70 countries along the One Belt, One Road, will be gathered here in China, in Beijing, to talk about all the major issues about how to promote the One Belt, One Road initiative. And I think President Xi Jinping is absolutely correct that we should talk more about win-win situation. We should not talk about one country above all the other countries. Eventually, you need a recipe so that everyone will be a winner. Everyone will benefit from the economic development. President Xi Jinping is asking all the other countries to take a free ride on China's rapid economic development.
Right.
And I think this eventually, hopefully, will prove out to be the better choice.
Xia Peng, China's economic growth, it outpaced most other big world economies at 6.7% GDP growth. What kinds of economic policies do you want to see to boost this growth, to see China's continued economic expansion?
Well, I think basically to the economic restructure is also very important, but I will still going to follow up on Mr. Gao's idea. It's all about, right now, the new and pressing issue is all about the international trade. And since the American is shutting its doors, it definitely imposes some negative effect on the rest of the world, including China. So I think the Chinese government is going to build more bilateral trade partnership as well. And I think Chinese people are very hospitable and also very humble, but also very self-confident. As the Confucius once said, we Chinese people in history would like to pursue the noble cause, and we should not shun from our responsibility as when we are going to pursue what we believe is important. And I guess as the second largest world economy, China should champion international trade, free trade, as well as the free market. And by doing so, I think China's economy will have the second engine rather than just rely on the Sino-American relationship and also the trade partnership.
All right. Victor, we're seeing some very contrasting styles here, just not only in terms of government, but also in policies. You know, as you pointed out in that speech that President Xi made at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and it was a very outward-looking speech. He talked about interconnected growth. In fact, in the same week, we had Donald Trump talk about America first. Very contrasting styles. How would you assess the two sessions model as compared to that in the US, for example, particularly in the era of Donald Trump?
Yes, I think if we look at the world today, then you have two very different approaches to deal with growth and economic development, to deal with growth in your own country versus the rest of the world. Now, at the two sessions, I think the NPC delegates as well as the CPPCC members will, first of all, bring about their own insights, experiences, their expectations to the table to be discussed together in the coming 2 weeks or so in Beijing. And I think they want to come up with either their own proposals for the CPPCC members or their bills, the draft bills that they want to go through the process and eventually get legislated as new laws for China. And this is very important because I think the two sessions eventually are driving for consensus, driving for better roadmap, and eventually many of the discussions and the proposals will be adopted either into new laws or into government actions. And this will help build up the consensus view in China so that all the people in different walks of life will need to move in the same direction. I think unlike the democracy method in the Western countries. In China, as I mentioned, we put a premium on consultative democracy, on consensus, on moving in the same direction. And I think the two sessions will reflect this very special type of Chinese consensus-based consultative democracy to the best moment. And this will help China to navigate better going forward in the coming months and coming years when the international situation becomes more and more complicated, especially by the largest economy of the world, the United States.
Right, Victor, I want to ask you about one aspect of that, and we've just got a little time left, about 30 seconds. President Xi, we have seen, is a reformist president, from economic and social reform to military transformation. What kind of reforms can we see in the time ahead, looking ahead?
I think President Xi Jinping has been declared the core of the leadership at the 6th plenum last year, and this is very, very significant. This means all the political parties, all the political forces in China are expected to rally behind President Xi Jinping as the core of the leadership. And I think the Communist Party of China, the Chinese government, and the society in China at large, the corporates, the citizens, will need to gather together in a more coherent manner. And this will enable China to live through the challenges that we are experiencing right now. Yes, the economy is slowing down. The global economy is not out of the woods, and there is a difference or argument as to where the world economy needs to go, protectionism or continued globalization. And I think this kind of debate at the two sessions take place against this overall fast-changing and uncertain global context. And all of us need to pitch in to make sure that China is continuing forward on the right path.